Our next speaker will tell us about social engineering and the trust equation and how to protect people, data, and deals in an AI-driven market. Please welcome the founder and director of Cyber AI, philanthropist, and Australian television personality, Duncan James Simpson.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for having me. Super excited to be talking to you all today. Hooked at first click, the reality of social engineering. Does anyone know what social engineering means? Raise your hand if you do. There's one up the back there, happens to be my co-founder. So I'll take you on a bit of a journey today and talk a little bit about that. But before I do, a little bit about me. I have been in cybersecurity for 20 years. Back when I first started, it was called computer security, but the sexy word of cyber came about a few years ago, and cybersecurity instantly became a bit cooler. I've worked for many cybersecurity vendors, typically American vendors, looking after Australian operations. I then worked for a systems integrator, which is really an organisation that brings a lot of different technologies together and provides that as a service to their customers. I then saw that there was a better way of doing cybersecurity, a way to secure and to protect customers and organisations better. So I founded Cyber AI 2 years ago, and I'm also a reality TV personality, as you can see on the screen. So if I was sitting in the audience today, like any of you are, I'd be thinking, what does cybersecurity have to do with reality TV? Surely they're very different things. And how are they related to the real estate industry? Well, I'll get into that. I'll also talk a little bit about what social engineering is, the impact of a single click in the real estate industry. So what happens if we click on things that we shouldn't click on? What's the impact within the real estate industry? And a little bit about the human element and why that's an area that attackers and hackers go after, and how we have to be vigilant as employees and users within the real estate industry. So social engineering is really just the psychological manipulation of somebody to get them to do something that they wouldn't normally do. And that happens in a lot of different ways, and we're going to explore a few. So I guess hold with me while these don't maybe make sense, but they'll come together as we talk through the different parts. So let's start with reality TV. You can see on the side there, that's myself standing there at the end of an aisle on my wedding day. My wedding day, marrying a complete stranger that I'd never met before and had never seen before in real life. I was on a TV show called Married at First Sight, which is the biggest TV show in Australia and is broadcast to 130 countries around the world. Reality TV is the masterclass of social engineering. It's about, this particular show is about getting people together using psychological cues, using producers that understand who you are, how you react, putting you in situations that aren't normal to you, and then getting you to act outside how you would normally act for great TV. And although it makes great TV, and I did have a lot of fun, it wasn't all fun and games. Yep, that's me crying on national television. Now, I'm not really a crier, and not that there's anything wrong with that, if there are criers in the audience. My friends and family wouldn't say I'm that of an emotional person, but I did cry. I cried on TV, and I cried because the producers had socially engineered, had manipulated a scenario to get me into a position where I was feeling really vulnerable and really upset. So I acted outside what my normal behaviour is in how I act, and I did something that's unusual to me. So they primed me. They used the environment around me. They constructed that environment. They used time pressure for me to give an answer. And they also exploited the trust that I'd had with the producers, because you become really close to producers when you spend 12 weeks with them every single day, locked in a hotel on a reality TV show. So that makes me think, is a reality TV producer or a cyber criminal the same thing? The tactics that they use are the same. Why? Because human psychology doesn't change. The believable narratives that the TV producer gave to me, or the emotional triggers that they played on, or the time-based pressure that they applied, are exactly the same things that hackers use today to try to convince you into doing something that you wouldn't normally do, something outside your business process and how you act and how you work every day within real estate. However, in real estate, in cybersecurity, the stakes are much higher. Instead of being socially engineered into a few tiers on national television, it can have a huge impact to your business. A single click on an email, a single click on your computer in the wrong way that you've been socially engineered into doing can have a huge effect on your business. And all of this happens at the intersection of where humans and technology come together, which is the vulnerable part of cybersecurity. So being a bit more specific to the real estate industry, we see these three areas as some of the key risks to all of you in the audience on a day-to-day basis when you're doing your job. The first one's phishing emails. So that's really just an email that you get, and we all get emails every single day, that is impersonating somebody in your supply chain, maybe one of your friends, maybe your bosses, and asking you or trying to trick you into doing something that you shouldn't do. Impersonation emails can be somebody pretending to be your tech support team and calling up, asking for access to your computer because they need to fix something on their end when really it's just a fake call. And there's also smishing, which is SMS phishing. But what we're going to talk about, or the most important risk from a cybersecurity perspective within the real estate industry, is email. It's still email after all of these years, because email is so important to your job and to what you do every single day. It's essential within the real estate industry. If we think about some of the things that happen on email, when you update banking details to provide a deposit, when you share a confidential document that's got some of the planning or the developments for some work that you're engaged in. These types of high-stake negotiations, important data, important information that you're sharing within your supply chain network or to your customers, it all happens on the email channel. And that's why that particular risk, the email channel or email communication within real estate, is an area that we're going to dive a little bit deeper into. So it sounds pretty scary. I've talked a little bit about a single click, clicking on something in an email that you shouldn't click on, and what is the impact or the impact that can happen within your business. It's harder than ever to secure ourselves, and we know that all of us as humans can be tricked quite easily into doing something we shouldn't do. We can't rely on just trying to work out what's right and wrong by ourselves anymore. We need to use AI and machine learning to combat these risks. So what is AI and how can it help? AI is technology that enables computers and machines to act like humans do. So think learning, problem solving, decision making, even creativity. In a nutshell, that's what AI is. But AI, in terms of what we're talking about today, in terms of the risks that we see within the real estate industry, is really around using AI to determine and to evaluate whether you're getting emails that are real. Are you getting an email, and are you being asked to do something on email that you shouldn't be doing? And how do you spot that? Well, that's very hard to do now. So you need to start using AI solutions to combat against the AI problem. So what does that look like? Okay. You can see we've got an email on the screen here. You can see at the top of the email it says vendor high risk. What the AI solution is doing here is assessing whether the domain, so where this email was sent from, is a high risk domain based on historical patterns that have come from that domain. We can also see that this email is from a legitimate domain, which means this email is not spoofed, so it's not it's from a legitimate mailbox that you may do or may have interactions with, right? Which means that your security system's not going to pick this up. You'll also see that inside the context or the body of the email, you can see that there's those orange pieces on the screen. It says bank, it says payment information. We know that if there's inside the context or the content of the email, if there's financial questions being asked or financial asks inside the email, that's another higher risk for us to look at this email. We also know that it's sent to a VIP, a very important person called Renee, who also happens to be my sister, but is not this particular person. VIPs are sent impersonation emails all the time. So we know that that's another higher risk around this particular email. Further down in the email, we can see that there's a time-based urgency. So this email, the user or the recipient, just like anyone in this audience, has been asked to do something to do with finance and banking. They've been asked to do something urgently, and it's a request to go and perform an action. We can also see the language is not the same language that these two people normally communicate to each other on email when we look at the historical emails that they've sent. And we can see at the very bottom there that the domain, when you reply to this email, is not the same domain that sent you the email. Now, when a human's looking at this particular email, when I would or anyone in the audience, it's very hard to pick all of these things up. So you've got an email from a supplier that you've spoken to that you obviously are in contact with a lot. Most people would look at that and say, okay, that is from my friend, that's from a supplier. I need to go ahead and do the ask that they've asked me to do. But this entire email is fake. And it's very hard for humans to pick that up. The only way we can do it, as I said, is using AI and machine learning to combat the AI threats that are out there. We use 45,000 different data points, some of the data points I've spoken about on the screen so far, to determine whether that email's real or not. So I think, and hopefully, I've convinced you all that you should be using AI and machine learning to be able to combat some of those risks that you see within the real estate industry, with email being one of the biggest ones. But if you're going to tell me, yes, I'm using AI, I've got some of the latest technologies in place to help me combat this email security issue, what else can I do to stay safe? There's a couple of things that are outside of technology that really help, that you can all implement within your day-to-day operations and how you think about using email within your business. The first one's building a security culture. So making sure that the people within your team, the people within your business are rewarded for vigilance, are rewarded for putting their hand up and saying, hey, something doesn't look right here. I'm not sure if this is what's meant to happen. I think making sure that that culture is ingrained in everyone that we work with really helps us keep a trusted community and a trusted supply chain within the real estate industry. The second one's create user awareness training programs. So by that, we mean conduct phishing training, conduct user awareness training, conduct fake security training as a way to be able to upskill everyone in your team as well as yourself to make sure that you don't get tricked. Because in the end, if you do get tricked, the reputation of your business, the reputation of your customers, the reputation of your suppliers and your reputation to them can be greatly affected. So it has a dramatic, it can have a dramatic effect on how you do business every day. The important part of those training programs is to make sure that when something bad happens, like you click on a link that you shouldn't click on, or you get an email and you act on it and you shouldn't, that you have training provided to you at that point, because that's when we all pick up and remember the training, not down the track. Finally, develop appropriate business processes. So by that I mean, if we get an email from a supplier and they're asking us to update our bank details, if we get an email from a colleague that's asked us to share a really important development application, but we wouldn't normally do that, so it feels a bit funny, right? Then we want to verify that that's the right thing to do. And the way to verify that is doing it via a different communication channel to the one that you received the request. So if you've received an email that has something unusual in it, then you've got to pick up the phone and call that person, or you've got to text, but phone would be best, and make sure that you're getting a second form of authentication because somebody is asking you to do something outside the norm of what you would normally do. If you implement these things and use AI and machine learning, you'll have a much safer working life, and your suppliers and your customers will trust you because your reputation as a business will stay intact. Tiny little bit about cyber AI. Obviously, I said I founded it 2 years ago. If you'd like to have a talk to me today or tomorrow about anything to do with cybersecurity, whether that's email security, web security, impersonations, deep fakes, if you want to hear a little bit about one of the biggest scams that's happened recently to a business in Hong Kong that lost $24 million through a deep fake. Myself and my business partner, Tim, which is the redhead man on the screen holding the balloons and is the redhead man over there, we would love to be able to help you. So I would really encourage you guys to come over and have a chat to us. And I guess to finish off, if you do cybersecurity the right way, there'll be no more tears, just a few smiles. So thank you very much for listening to me. Hope you learned something.